All right, everyone, welcome back into another NBA props video. Going to be breaking down the top prop bets here for this 4-game slate on Thursday. Some pretty decent bets, I think, that we are getting here due to some injuries. So we'll go ahead and break that down. But first, just a quick recap from yesterday. So guys, yesterday the PrizePicks slip was a little bit strange. We had Trae Young end up getting injured at the start of that game. Jalen Johnson was able to get his over in that game. DeMar DeRozan with a rare push. I mean, that is pretty darn crazy for a fantasy score prop bet. Sharp, I do want to talk about this one further. He did not get his over, and then Walker Kessler got his over quite easily. A little bit of a scare with that game potentially being a blowout. That did not end up happening. And then the underdog bet slip ended going 3 for 4. Did mention a decent amount that I was worried about the blowout potential in that game with Jamal Murray. I'm curious if anyone ended up cashing a 3 slip bet here or ended up betting his under on PrizePicks, just because, again, that was a big prop line difference that we were getting. And I did call it out like probably too much, but like what we kind of thought could happen ended up happening there. Zion ended up sitting, thus the game ended up being a blowout, but the other 3 ended up hitting pretty solidly. So yeah, I just want to pull up the box score here for Portland. So kind of annoyed by this, guys, with the Sharp call, because overall he did end up shooting the basketball better in that game, as we were kind of hoping for. 6 for 14, 4 for 8 from 3. Good stuff there. He only got 24 minutes. Now, I didn't see if it was due to foul trouble. I know he had like 2 early fouls in the first half, and then ended up with 4 fouls overall, or if it was just a lineup change. I haven't got a chance to look into that too much, but kind of annoying that if he just gets 10 more minutes like he had been getting, then he probably easily gets, I don't want to say easily, but he does get it's over there. So kind of nailed the spot that he would shoot better. Just the minutes were wrong, which is kind of annoying there with him. And so, guys, let's go ahead and take a peek at the 4 games that we have for this slate. Let's start off here with the Magic versus Charlotte game. So this game is a pretty high game total. 240 is the point total here, which, again, just based off the Magic over the previous years, this is crazy how high score of a game total this is. And then looking at a pretty close game as well. So this could end up being a game where we are looking to place some stack bets, where we're stacking this game. Injury-wise, when we look at it, guys, Orlando seemingly pretty much good to go in terms of players that we'd be betting on. Charlotte has Brandon Miller, Grant Williams, and then also Josh Hart still out, again, kind of as we would expect. Now, for this game, I actually don't mind some of the bets that we are getting here. I don't mind going back to the well with like Colin Sexton for just really any of his bets in general. Like his over points of 17.5, I think I can get behind with that one. Again, with this high game total, assuming he ends up getting the same minutes that he has been getting, I think that ends up being a pretty decent bet for us. And then also his points and assists line here. The average sportsbook line has it at 22.5. PrizePicks has it at 21.5. Both bets I actually think I'd be comfortable getting to more like traditional sportsbook bets, more like a sleeper type of bet there. If you guys are some of the bets there. And yeah, guys, if we look at the minutes, they've been solid. I mean, 27 in a game that ended up being a blowout to 33, 30, and then 17 in the first game. Kind of a weird game there. That game was a blowout there as well. He was very productive in that game. So assuming he still gets around 30 minutes, he should be in for a good spot for us here. And it is worth calling out here, guys, with Colin Sexton, he is projected to get 27 minutes. So we're kind of hoping that ends up being wrong, that he does end up getting closer to 30 minutes than instead. We are seeing his projected to get right around 18 points, 4.5 assists. So both of those would align with him, favoring the over bets for us there with the points and assists or the over points. Now, another player that I'll pull up here on the DraftKings cheat sheet is going to be Con for Charlotte. He is someone that I think the projected minutes are going to end up being wrong here, and that's going to be the key. He needs to get more minutes than this. But he is someone that we've seen some weird lines early on this morning with Con. I call this out in the Discord chat where he was at 12.5 points to start the day, and then his PRA was at 20. And this has been fluctuating a decent amount throughout the day. So it is it's worth calling out here, guys. So you do 12.5 points. Plus, let's just do his rebounds and assists. Let's just say he gets to 6 there. Obviously, that's 18.5, so like his under 20 PRA would end up being a good bet. You look at his points and then you look at his assist again here. You give him 2 here, or even 2.5. And then the points and assist line is also too low. So we're just seeing some weird lines in regards to him in general. And it's really up to you guys kind of what you see happening here with him. I don't mind the over points line here of 12.5. Again, more of a game stack bet. And if you don't like him, if you think he's only going to get 20 minutes or so, then you'd want to bet on his under PRA there of 20. And the thing with Con is he has been shooting a decent amount, guys. 11, 12, and 15 shot attempts over the past few games. Been making his 3 balls. It does take one poor night shooting, though, for him to not have a good game. And I kind of think a rookie shooting this well is kind of just due for a bad game. But decent matchup here against Orlando, high-scoring game. I don't know if I necessarily want to get there. So I'm probably more in favor of the over 12.5 points there on Prize Picks with the game stack with Colin Sexton for over his points of 17.5. And yeah, guys, so the line for Con has been fluctuating, so I probably just need to refresh this browser here. But the line when I started this video and had this or started researching this was at 13.5. As I mentioned earlier on in the day, it was at 12.5. Then when I went to film this video, it was at 13.5, and now it's been updated back to 12.5. So some weird line fluctuation with him for sure. The standard line, though, the average sportsbook line has been at 13.5 throughout the day, and Prize Picks just doesn't want to put him at 13, which, again, is just kind of strange. And then one of my favorite bets in this game, because today is telling us to bet the over, and because we look at underdog, they have it a little bit higher, and the average sportsbook line really has it higher, is Paulo Banchero to get over 40 for his fantasy score. I think this ends up being a pretty solid bet for us, again, especially with the game stack that we could be looking at, but also just the game in general with it being a high-scoring game. And he is someone that over the last 3 games has been able to get that over, one game was close, 43.5, but then 55 almost, and then 49 almost. So again, we're just in a game stack. It makes more sense. But I did want to call that out because we were getting a pretty solid prop line difference. So now let's go ahead and get into the next game here. We have the Washington Wizards versus the OKC Thunder, 15.5 point spread here. So this is the difficult part about the bets that we could be on for this game. And it really comes down to whether or not George is going to play well for Washington because OKC is banged up, which I'll touch on in just a second. And it is a low scoring game as well, 231.5. Especially compared to some of the other games. Obviously, the first game there being 240 points. And so, yeah, we look at who's out here for the OKC Thunder guys. Isaiah Joe, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, Kenrick Williams, Topic, and then also Sorber. Washington, we are going to have Bilal Coulibaly back, and then Marvin Bagley is currently questionable. Coulibaly being back is definitely interesting. And right now, the projection data has him at about 30 minutes. So if he does end up getting that is pretty crazy, and that could lead to like someone like Keyshawn George, who I actually don't mind for over his fantasy score. That could kind of limit his upside then if we're taking a little bit of usage away from him. So yes, guys, in this game, I don't mind the idea of doing George for over his fantasy score, but this would very much be another kind of game stack bet. If you are betting on this game to stay closer than what it's projected to be, or for the blowout to maybe still occur, but not be something that affects the game flow of the game, then it's not a terrible bet. We have seen he's really crushed the over in 3 out of 4 games thus far this year. The issue would become if the game's a blowout. One, he's going to be part of the reason as to why it's a blowout. But if it's a blowout, he's not going to get enough minutes for us to really trust the over bet here. So interesting spot there for him. I did want to call that out. Then I do really like the idea of getting to Isaiah Hartenstein, guys, for his over rebounds here of 11.5. So this is another bet that would be a better traditional sportsbook bet. Again, if you're betting on sleeper or something like that, where you get rewarded for taking on an increased risk, I would rather bet there. And just a reminder, guys, if you are someone that's betting on Sleeper for the first time, use the promo code 9TO5. They'll give you guys $50 when you spend your first $5. A simple and easy way to help out the channel. And they always had daily discounts going on. Like right now, they have Zay Flowers at 59.5 receiving yards as a discount of 10 receiving yards. And they also have a college football one as well for Saturday. Cooper, Indiana versus Maryland game. His discount is about 9 receiving yards. So worth that, guys. Again, I think I will be running out Hardenstein for over 11.5 rebounds there on Sleeper. But the reason why I like this is I don't think the data is really adjusting for Jalen Williams being out as well as Chet Holmgren being out. So we look at the data thus far this year, per 36 wise, with those two players off the court, he averages about 14.7 rebounds. Okay, now you might say, okay, that's a small sample size for this year. Good to see, but what else do we got? Well, if we look at last year's data, it's basically the exact same. It actually goes up a little bit more. And actually, guys, the first stat I gave you was a little bit wrong. That was actually just with Chet Holmgren off the court. Okay, if you attach Jalen Williams to that, it goes up to about 15.8 rebounds. Okay, so the point is Hartenstein just is much more productive in general, but rebounds-wise goes up one with Chet Holmgren off the court and then even more with Jalen Williams off the court. And so if the game stays close, this bet, I think, would be a bet. Let's say the game was at like 8.5 even. I think this would already be bumped up to 12. Okay. Again, this is kind of like Jamal Murray where we just worry about the overall minutes for Hartenstein. But I don't mind the idea of doing a little game stack, betting on the game to stay close, because if that happens, like that's the bet. If the game stays close, then we have a pretty good game stack. Hartenstein for his over, George for his over. Then I actually don't mind the idea of getting to like SGA for over his fantasy score. Per 36 with Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren off the court, actually averaged 64 fantasy points per 36 with them off the court. I don't hate the points prop bet, but I feel like it is juiced up a little bit. Probably should be at like 32.5, but he averaged about 40 points per 36 with those two players off the court as well. So worth calling out. And then Aaron Wiggins, I do like his over fantasy score here as well of 27.5. If you guys don't want to bet on his over fantasy score, I think you could potentially get to his over 16.5 points, although that one's a little bit tighter. With a player like Aaron Wiggins who can make a difference in the game in multiple ways, I'd rather get to his over 27.5 for his fantasy score, maybe hoping for a block or a steal or some additional assists. Now, I'll give you guys the stats with those players off the court again. He averages 21.8 points, 7.1 rebounds, 3.2 assists, and about 38 fantasy points per 36. That's mostly looking at last year's data, just because this year's data, the sample size was a little bit too skewed in general there for him. So now, guys, let's go ahead and get into the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Golden State Warriors. A game that's projected to be close. Golden State is 3-point favorites, which is kind of crazy to me. I think the Bucks should be closer to a toss-up. The Bucks are just playing well. I get that the Golden State Warriors are playing well. It's a very fun matchup here. Game total-wise, not too high scoring as well. Injury-wise for both teams, we know Kevin Porter Jr. is still out, and then nothing too crazy there with the Golden State Warriors. And then this ends up being a spot where I think all the bets that we're getting for Ryan Rollins basically, again, are all too low. Like it was for really the last two games. I don't really understand what's going on with his lines. They're all just too low. I actually just like going with his over fantasy score. I think that ends up just being a better spot to get to. And if we just look at his lines, guys, like his 11.5 points, again, does seem to be too low. We're seeing just differing lines throughout. But I really do like his over fantasy score. He's someone that's getting multiple steals per game. And that's not a fluke. Like, he's playing great defense. And if you just look at his per 36 production last year with like Kevin Porter Jr. off the court, you can include Chris Middleton in that sample if you want. Obviously, they made a trade midseason for Kyle Kuzma. It's a little bit of a different sample. But basically, guys, he has averaged what he is currently averaging against teams that should have been more difficult opponents for him. And so I do really like the idea of going back to the well with Ryan Rollins to over 26 for his fantasy score. That's really just a bet on him having multiple steals. I would argue his steals line is too low. We do see 2 turnovers, so let's say he doesn't get multiple blocks and steals and does get 2 turnovers, then sure, maybe he might not get his over fantasy score. But still, like, even in general, I just think those lines are all coming in a little bit too low. But same thing for like Gary Trent Jr., guys. We're getting some pretty low lines for him. I'm really surprised at the rebounds and assists just due to the amount of minutes that he's going to get. And we see his game log, guys, 6, 2, 6, and 6. So he's been able to get this over now in 3 out of 4 games thus far this season. And that's really not a fluke. I don't really understand the line that we're getting with him. And then even, guys, Cole Anthony. Now, I don't know if you necessarily need to go on Cole Anthony too much, but assuming that he ends up getting around the same minutes that he has gotten over the past 2 games with Kevin Porter Jr. off the court, he should be able to get over 7.5 rebounds and assists. I'm really confused about the lack of line movement for these Bucks players over the past several games with Kevin Porter Jr. off the court. And if we look at it, guys, 24 minutes in the last game, guys, so we see 9 assists, 4 rebounds. Didn't exactly shoot the basketball too well, so that could be why he got a couple more assists. And then in the game against Toronto, 27 minutes, ended up getting 23 points, really good there, but 4 rebounds, 7 assists. And then even in the game against Washington, a game in which he only had 12 minutes, again, he should see more minutes with Kevin Porter Jr. off the court. He had 7 rebounds and assists in that game. And so it's just a very strange line that we're getting there. Now, we also are getting what I think is a pretty strange line as well with Al Horford. And I want to start with the minutes that he is currently getting right now, guys, 20, 29, and 20. We need those minutes to be there for the bet I'm going to call up. And then it is worth calling out his field goals attempted, 5, 8, and 7, but also look at the amount of 3 balls he's attempted as well. And this is the bet I wanted to call. It's a little bit strange to me that we're getting his 2 points attempted at 1.5. I would have thought it'd be at 2. And then you could bet the over or the under, depending on what you want to get to, with a chance that it'd probably end up being a push. I don't understand this one. I think this ends up being a pretty good bet for us, assuming that he ends up getting 20 or so minutes. That's really what we're betting on there. So I think that ends up being a pretty good bet. Again, guys, we're getting a lot of good game stack bets I think we could run out for this slate. And then, guys, let's jump on into the last game of the night. We got the Spurs versus the Heat. The Spurs are going to be 6-point favorites in this game. About 230 total points in this game. And then we look at the injuries. A decent amount of players actually injured in this game. So Norman Powell is the biggest one here, guys. He is currently doubtful. Jovic actually is expected to play in this game, which could shift some of the bets I'm actually going to recommend here, guys. So honestly, like it's going to be in retrospect that I'll say that those bets weren't good bets, but I will say these bets that I'm going to give out are predicated on Jovic just not being as involved in his first game. And sorry, not his first. I was going to say with his first game with Norman Powell off the court, but no, he played in the last game against Charlotte, so never mind there. But jumping into Davion Mitchell, this is the player that I do think is going to continue to play more and get a little bit more usage with Norman Powell off the court, because again, Norman Powell is soaking up a bunch of usage. I think though, if we're seeing that a lot of his over bets are the favorite bets here, but I think we're just going to bet on him. We might as well just bet on his over fantasy score, which is a little bit of a tight line, and I could see why someone maybe wouldn't want to get there with him. Perfectly understandable. Another player that I do like in the spot here for Miami, again, we're getting a lot of game stack bets. Would be looking at Hawkes to continue to play well. He's played extremely well thus far this whole season, but with Norman Powell at the court, we do expect him to get a decent amount of run, even if he is coming in off of the bench. Now, it is a difficult matchup. I do want to call that out, but we did see him continue to get a decent amount of run. So he didn't necessarily see his minutes go up. That game was a blowout, though, so I would expect that it would go up if the game stayed close. That's kind of been the issue with Miami, is a couple of their games have been blowouts, but I do expect if this game does stay close like it's expected to, kind of a difficult matchup for him, Spurs-wise, but overall, I think we could see him get closer to 33 minutes, and if he does, then I do really like his overs here. And then for what it's worth as well, we saw Larson end up getting a decent amount of run in the last game, 30 minutes. Now, that being said, he got like almost 7 minutes in blowout run. So you take that out, probably closer to like 23, 22 minutes. And then the lines become a little bit tighter. But I also he probably still would have got some run. So I don't really mind his over PRA, again, if you are doing a game stack here. Then I do just want to get into some prop line difference bets that I do like on Underdog here, guys. So Giannis right now, if you look on PrizePicks, it's at 60.5 for his fantasy score. We can get him here at 57.5 on Underdog. And the average sportsbook line has him at 56. Okay, so we don't necessarily love that. So you could end up betting the under on Underdog. I kind of just like doing game stacks in this game, and I expect Giannis to continue to play well. But again, you could just simply bet on his under on PrizePicks there. Colin Sexton. So Colin Sexton is someone that, again, I do like having a good game in this spot. And so if you want to bet on his over, maybe instead of doing his points or doing his assists, you could end up just getting to his over fantasy score. PrizePicks has his fantasy score about 1.5 more fantasy points. Desmond Bane here. PrizePicks, again, has his closer to like 33 for his fantasy score, so slight edge. It's a decent way to attack that very high-scoring game. Not the biggest edges, but not terrible. And then same thing here with Alex Zar as well, where his fantasy score is a little bit too low, I would say, for the matchup with OKC. Again, assuming the game stays close. So if you're looking for another bet in regards to a game stack bet, just betting on that game to stay close, he would also be part of the reason as to why that does occur. And again, OKC is pretty banged up, so it wouldn't be too shocking to see them have it closer to like 9.5 points, keep it that close. And so guys, we're about to get into the 9-to-5 bet of the day, but do just want to ask you guys to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you guys have not done so before, especially on a day where there's Thursday Night Football going on, and I have to come out with the NBA video a little bit later on in the day. That does help out a bunch. YouTube does not like when I put out a bunch of content, which is pretty annoying for me, but I just like getting the content out to you guys, so show some love. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump now into the bet of the day. 6-slip bet, just recapping some of the bets I mentioned. Again, some of these are going to be better on traditional books, a little bit more so than maybe on PrizePicks. So like, again, with Hartenstein, probably not the best bet for PrizePicks. Okay, you'd be better off placing that bet on Sleeper. So if you didn't want to include that, I understand. And then these 3 bets I like more with game stacks. I think it's a good game stack bet between Milwaukee and Golden State. And then Davion Mitchell, I do think this ends up being a pretty good edge for us for him to get his over fantasy score in that matchup against the Spurs, which is projected to be a closer game. The reason why we like that is because Norman Powell is doubtful to play, so it ends up being a decent bet for us there. That's going to do it for this video, guys. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you guys would like access to any of the NBA tools available at 9to5sports.com, you guys can get access to all those tools for a low monthly cost of $10 a month. Appreciate you guys being here. Good luck, and as always, let's keep cashing.